Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Clangin and Bangin with Mikey, episode 124. And today we're gonna talk about something that's been on my mind all week, man. Behavior and how people react to different types of behavior. Um, so if you look at the definition of behavior, it is, the definition of behavior it in the way which one acts or conducts in oneself, especially towards others. But if you look for a deeper meaning, it basically means in which way an animal and a person acts in response to a particular situation or stimulus. That's what I was going for. Because everybody's behavior is going to be different in every situation. Um, and what I mean by behavior, I just mean by just like how you react to certain things or how you respond to certain things. And a lot of people, man, that like they're not worth a response. Especially if people get all carried away and they start bringing up stuff that's not really a part of the conversation or things of that nature. I recently had to tell somebody who I cared deeply about that we can't carry on how we've been carrying on. I was like, I can't be that space for you that you want me to be because it's not, like, Ma, you got a man. Go talk to that nigga. Go confide in him, And her response was, she said what she said. I was like, okay, cool, whatever. Um, because at a certain point in time, you just know that there's no need to respond. There's no need to engage in conversation with this individual because, or any individual who asks that, because if you're gonna get defensive at everything that somebody says, that means you probably got a lot of work left to do. And when I say work, I mean internal work. Because if you're taking everything as a defense, that means you haven't worked on anything. That means you just gotten older. Um, because the way I look at things is like, if somebody's telling you something, they're telling you this shit to help you get better. Now it all depends on how they tell you that. Because there are people out there who say, well, um, you got to do it this way, you got to do it that way, boom, 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 boom. And in reality, what they're trying to do is trying to get you to move, trying to get you to think how they think and how they move, and that doesn't work. A lot of people will sit there and question your behavior or question how you move the certain way that you move, but in reality, their behavior or their reaction to a particular situation just shows that they have a lot more work left to do. Granted, because for me, I know I'm not the most easy person to get along with. 'Cause I'm opinionated. I have my views and everything too, but I'm not set in them. Like I'm able to look at things from other people's point of view, but I can also point out what the other person is doing wrong. And a lot of the times, people will not really check their behavior until it's too late. Um, I've seen people that I know get in situations or relationships, and years go by, this and that, and it's like when they finally break up with the individual, they want to be like, well, he or she had all these red flags, this and this, and I was like, no, it's like no, and they're acting like the red flags are brand new. It's like, no, those red flags been there since the beginning, man. It's like you just didn't want to pay attention to it because you was getting laid, and a lot of people be like, what? It's like, yeah. It's like, I get it. Who doesn't want, like, why would anybody want to give that up? But at the same time, you can't sit there and complain about all the red flags that you ignored, because the same shit that's pleasing and fucking, cute in the beginning is the same shit that tears you apart in the end. And I was talking to a couple good homegirls of mine, and I was telling her, yo, like, I'm tired of this shit, bro. I'm tired of these streets, nigga. It's like, and it's a, and I was like, yo, like, somebody come sub me out. And by sub me out, I mean take me off these streets and just let me go find somebody who I can vibe with, bro. Cause y'all know how I be, man. It's like I do three things, actually four things. Go to work, go to the gym, you know, I work on my music. I take care of my family. I mean, like that's all I do. You know, I may go to the movies periodically here and there, but other than that, nah. I was like, I'm cool. You know, I don't need to be all up in the know or know who doing what, they this and this and that. And it's like, nah, I don't need to know all that. I think a lot of people, man, they get caught up in what everybody else is doing, and they don't realize that that you should be focused on yourself, and your behavior can be extremely influenced by the people that you kick it with, and influenced by your family. Main thing is your family, your friends, because your friends are an extension of you. That's why I've never understood that people who got dumbass friends is like, and it's like, bro, don't you realize your friends are a reflection of you? Or like, I've had friends growing up that all they wanted to do was drink and party and fucking, do all that wild shit, and it's like, okay, cool, like, I mean, when I was younger, I used to partake in that too, because it's like, yeah, I wanted to fit in too, but like, as I got older, I figured like, okay, let me go off and do some shit that I actually, that would be beneficial for me, right? And so I stopped hanging out with these cats. I stopped doing all the dumb shit that they were doing, because it just wasn't, it wasn't, it wasn't conducive. It wasn't conducive to to what I wanted to do. And I'm not saying that these guys are bad people, because they're not. But I just had to leave them alone because they was detrimental to my end goal. And my end goal at that particular time, I believe, was to graduate college. Just set, just to hit the milestones that I wanted to hit. And they weren't doing that. Like, they were working the same job since high school. They was out there bitching them on about their bills, shit like that, yada yada yada. And I was like, yo, okay, bro, I'm gonna go holler at you later because I gotta go to the gym, or I gotta do this, I gotta do that. And they would always have something negative to say about it. And I'm like, yo, like, that's your opinion, partner, and you're entitled to that. But at the same time, it's like, you know, certain behaviors do not require any response. And that's what I think pisses a lot of people off about me, or where somebody can be snapping at me, and I'll just be like, okay, mm-hmm. And I can just keep moving, and I don't give them a response because they don't deserve it. Because how you respond to something isn't my concern. How you respond to something tells me that you have bigger things to work on within yourself. Or and like I said earlier, if you're taking everything as a defensive, that means it's like what this person is telling you, you haven't worked on, and you have to work on it, but you don't want to work on it because for whatever reason you have your reasons or whatever it is, and I think that's why a lot of people stay stuck, man, because they don't realize how they grew up was has an effect on them, where they grew up, a type of the type of environment and everything too. Me myself personally, I never really knew what a healthy relationship looked like until I got older, until I moved away, until I moved out of state. And then I saw how people I saw people conducting themselves. I saw people, who were in healthy, loving relationships, moved and everything too. I saw how they, cared about. I mean, I'm not to say that the situations I was in, people didn't care about each other, but it's like how they went about it was completely different. And it kind of taught me like, okay, yo, what you saw growing up was bullshit. What you saw growing up was actually abusive and toxic. What you saw growing up was two people who probably never really loved each other at the time that, and when I came to the picture, and versus, when they first hooked up. And it really fucked me up because it's like I looked at that and I modeled my relationships on my my future pending relationships based off that with women. And what I'm talking about is my mom and my dad. So with that being said, man, I'm out of a lot of my relationships after what I saw, because that's all I could go off of. And I remember being told, hey man, like, don't fall in love with her, fall in love with it. And that really fucked me. Because like I ended up getting some pretty solid girls. And it's like I yeah, I ended up getting some pretty solid girls, and it's like this emotionally I just wasn't, when I tried to connect with them, it's like it just wasn't there. So physically I had to go off the physical. And what I mean by that is like I'm a very emotionally in tune individual. I like to talk about your day, the little details, the little nuances, the shit going on. It's like I want to know, what the most important part of your day is, or what's the most stressful part of your day is. I want to know everything, because it's like that's how I operate. That's how I move, because it's important to know what makes the other individual that you're talking to, tick. Like you want them to feel heard, you want them to feel seen and everything too. And I think a lot of people don't know how to do that. They just go off, oh well, X, Y, and Z, yada yada yada. I'm like, no, it's deeper than that, mamas. You know what I mean? It's like, like like don't ever play yourself, man, because it's like I had this one girl that I knew, or know, I should say I know, and she said she was telling me something once, and I said, yo, don't ever play yourself, man. It's like you're way more important than what other people from your past relationships think that you are. And she is, you know. And for me, it's like that's just how I am, man. It's like I care about people a lot, and it takes a lot for me not to care for them. And when I say that, it's like it's not like I don't want the best for you. It's not like I don't want to see you succeed. But at the same time, it's like I can't sit there and be friends with you and watch you be mediocre. I can't sit there and watch you complain about relationship after relationship when when there's probably a dude or two, minus me, um, who would probably treat you a lot better than your current boyfriend does or your current husband does or whatever it is, right? Um, I'm not saying go out there and cheat. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is that go find what makes you happy and do that. And if it involves leaving a relationship or leaving a friendship behind, then do that. I mean, because it's like a lot of the times, man, people will outgrow you, or you will outgrow people, and that's fine. Like I said, doesn't mean that they're bad people. It just does. It just means that their behavior that they still possess isn't what you want to do. Or when guys complain about X, Y, and Z, this and this and that. Even when I was in college, a lot of cats I knew growing up, where they say, "Oh well, if I had the opportunities such and such had, I would have the same thing." I'm like, bro, you did. You had an avenue to pay for your school. You had an avenue to get a degree and do all this shit. You didn't want to do it. So don't sit there and tell me that that you would have had the same thing when you had the same opportunity and you failed to go get it done. You know? So, and I think at the end of the day, that's some good coffee. At the end of the day, it's all up to you and what you want to do and how you want to do it and everything. Because people will only believe you to a certain point, and then they'll be like, okay, I've heard this story before. I don't really care about it. I don't really need to know because it doesn't do nothing for me. And it doesn't bring any useful knowledge to the situation. Again, it goes back to behavior. A lot of people will talk about what they want to do or this and this and that, and we're all guilty of it. Every single one of us is. But at the end of the day, it's about behavior. It's about putting those words into action and becoming the better version of yourself. Of yourself. I didn't, believe it or not. When I moved to California in 2018, fall of 2018, and I was only there for maybe 3 4 months. Real short. But what I saw, what I experienced, and what I, because I was out there on my own. I was living with family and everything. I was doing all that, but I was out there making my own mistakes, living with the consequences, and I learned how to be a grown man. I learned how to be a man in situations that required me to do that, because not that I depended on anybody, because I never really did, in terms of financing myself, in terms of clothing myself, and I was like, never really did all that, man. I've always had money in my pocket. I always had, funds where I can move around and shit, do all that do all that shit, right? I could always do all that. But the one thing with moving to California taught me is that you gotta grow, and you gotta expand, you gotta broaden your horizons, and it's like a lot of people don't want to do that. A lot of people just want to stay stuck and they want to bitch and moan about it. And I think that's it's important, because you have to be willing to grow. You have to be willing to change. You can't stay the same. Life doesn't allow that. Because if everybody stayed the same, bro, we'd be living a motherfucking Truman Show. Yeah. And I think um, change is difficult. To change your behavior, to change everything else that you have going on, it's extremely difficult, but it's worth it, because at the end of the day, you deserve the change. Well, you deserve the change, and you deserve to get better. You deserve to chase your goals and your dreams, your ambitions, and anybody who doesn't believe in you, fuck them anyway too, because the hate that you receive is going to be from people that know you the best. That's why strangers always support you, because they know how difficult it is to get where you need to go. And a lot of people who know you, who will discourage you simply because they see you trying to level up, and they can't stand the fact that you're trying to move on up and they're still stuck in the same spot. Um, and it's pathetic, and it's sad, and it's a reflection of their behavior. And I think the more and more people realize this, the better our people will be, because you don't you don't get blessed by putting other people down. You don't get blessed by being negative all the time. I mean, there's a difference between being honest and being negative. Being honest with somebody means like, okay, like you doing this, you doing that, yada yada yada, boom boom boom. But instead of you doing this shit all the time, and instead of you just doing what you want to do, there's there's one person I know. She has a tendency, whenever she gets upset, like she'll stonewall people, you know, and it's frustrating to deal with that, because instead of you searching for understanding, instead of you searching for a common ground or common understanding, you got to deal with this shit. You got to deal with somebody who doesn't want to talk about their emotions, who doesn't want to deal with their, why they're upset, or who can't come up with a reason why they're upset, a logical reason at that, but yet they want to stonewall you. And it's really frustrating to deal with that, because it's like, it's childish. It's childish to deal with somebody who doesn't understand that, I'm trying to communicate with you the best way I know how. And the best way I know how is to talk shit out. And it's frustrating to deal with that, because it shows you what type of mentality or what type of mental this person's operating at. And a lot of people, when they get called out for it, they don't know how to move, because they're like, well, yeah, deer in the headlights type of shit, right? And I think that's it's sad, because the older people get, the harder it is to recognize your behavior and change it. Because a lot of people will be like, well, I don't do this, boom, boom, boom. Like, you kind of do. You know what I mean? It's like, you kind of do this, and you kind of do that. Because, like I said, behaviors are patterns. patterns don't lie. People do. You know, the one thing with our brain and whatnot is that we recognize patterns. So I can kind of tell when I'm dealing with certain individuals, okay, he or she gonna do this, boom, 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 boom. And 95% of the time, this shit happens, you know. And it's like, after a while, you just get tired of dealing with people because it's like, it's gonna be the same tired ass patterns. It's gonna be the same type of bullshit. I don't want to deal with it, you know. And honestly, you shouldn't have to, you know. You shouldn't have to deal with something or somebody who just doesn't recognize that what they're doing is detrimental. Because a lot of the times people will look for yes men or yes women in their circles to be like, oh yeah, boy, oh yeah, bro, you know, she ain't shit, this and this and that, yada yada yada, boom, 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 boom. And same thing with y'all females. You know, y'all women do the same shit. Y'all be dogging us the fuck out too. You know what I mean? So, but then again, it goes back to justifying your behaviors, you know, and how you react to certain stimuli or situations. So, I mean, as long as you can recognize your behavior and make the conscious effort to change it, then yeah, go ahead and do that. But don't ever sit there and blame somebody else for your inability to recognize your behavior and your inability to or your lack of action to change it. Anyway, y'all, this is about 21 and a half minutes of your life that you won't get back. Hope y'all keep it in the full P's, private play, positive pushing. See y'all next week Sunday. Like I always say, know your worth because you're better than what you are. All right, y'all. Love y'all. Goes.